Hey, what's going on, my friend? Today, I want to share with you what some of the biggest differences are when you're working at a small startup company versus a much larger corporation. These things are all very important to consider, especially when you're applying for a new position and you're determining which offer to accept. Do you accept the one from a smaller company that only has less than 50 employees? Or do you accept the offer from a much more well-established company that has over 3,000 employees? You know, personally, it's a tough call, and I hope to share some of my biggest lessons and experiences from my own career so that you can make the right decision. Now, over my career, I've had the opportunity to work for many different companies, ranging from small startup companies to much larger ones, and they're completely different in terms of what to expect. When I was first starting out my career in engineering, I worked previously at a very small company that's kind of like a startup. And the biggest thing that I noticed is that the culture is much more closer knit in smaller companies. It's going to feel like a family, and you're going to get so many things done much faster. If you need to talk to someone, that person is probably right down that hallway in an office that's literally 3 to maybe 5 seconds away from you, and they're not in a separate building location, which may be down the street or in another city or another country. Because teams in like a small startup company, they're much smaller, which means that it's much easier to have collaboration, and it's very easy to communicate with people who are on your team. Now, if your startup is only in one physical location, you won't have to schedule time with people that are across the world in a different time zone. And on top of that, because the teams in startups are much smaller than a large corporation, if a document, a vendor contract, or a purchase order needs some kind of approval, it probably won't take as long. So instead of it taking 2 to maybe 3 months to have something approved, it might only take a few weeks. And that's because the startup environment is much smaller in size and magnitude than a much larger corporation. You can also have much more face-to-face interactions with other managers and leadership because the company doesn't consist of thousands of employees like a much larger corporation would. The other major thing about working in a small startup environment is that you'll have the opportunity to wear a lot of different hats. You're going to be doing different responsibilities that aren't necessarily part of your true job title. And because of that, you're going to learn so much information in such a short time period because you're working on so many different things. Now, once I started working at bigger corporations, the biggest difference that I noticed was that the focus of your work will be much more narrow. You're going to be involved in only one work stream, and you have to stay inside of your lane. So depending on the work and the role that you have, you may not have the full picture of everything or all the work that the company is doing because your role it's so much more focused and more narrow in scope. You know, looking back at my experience, I'm very happy that I've had the opportunity to work at smaller companies because I was able to grow and learn so many things, which ended up really propelling and advancing and growing my career. I probably wouldn't have had those experiences if I started out working at much larger corporations. By the way, if you're getting a lot of value out of this video, please make sure to smash that like button for me because it truly shows your support. And it also helps out my channel tremendously so that I can make even better videos like this. Alright, so in terms of job benefits, there is a huge difference between smaller and larger companies. A small startup company, they're not going to have the same benefits that you would typically expect if you were working at a much larger company. A smaller startup company may not have a 401k, and your healthcare and your insurance options, they're going to be much more limited. You're going to have a higher deductible with larger upfront costs. For smaller startup companies, you're going to be given a salary, of course, but with much fewer benefits. If you work for a Fortune 100 company, for example, not only will you have your salary, a 401k, really good healthcare insurance, and of course stock options, but you'll have access to so many other perks and benefits. So for example, if you work at the corporate headquarters of a large company, you may have free access to an on-site gym, you'll get free meals in the cafeteria, discounts to movie tickets, concert, software, restaurants, and the list goes on. Whereas a small company they may only have about 50 employers or so, and the revenue, of course, is only a few $1,000,000 a year. A much bigger company will have more than thousands and thousands of employees with a revenue of well beyond $1 billion a year. So to me, the biggest difference is that because a smaller startup company makes significantly less revenue than a bigger corporation, you're more likely to earn a smaller salary than you would at a Fortune 100 company. However, you might learn a lot more skills because you're forced to wear so many different hats in your role, and your scope of responsibilities won't be as narrow. At a more well-established, larger company, it's almost expected that you will make a higher salary. Now, at startups and small companies, you have the benefit of working directly with their management team and having face-to-face conversations with their directors, vice presidents, and even the CEO, which you absolutely may not have that opportunity at much larger scaled companies. And for some individuals, this might be game-changing because it's going to give you a whole new perspective on business and your career growth, because you're getting advice and you're getting insight into someone who just started a company and they're trying to grow their business to that next level. Whereas in my experience at a larger company, I have never once spoken to our CEO or some of the higher level vice presidents just because the company is so big. And with my role at a big company, although I manage projects, I mainly work with the people who do the work itself and not the higher level executives who oversee the entire business. So from my own personal experience, the biggest concern that I had working with a smaller company was primarily earning income potential. When you stay at a smaller company, it's not guaranteed that you'll receive an annual bonus or even a salary that corresponds to your job promotion. Because the company is so much smaller, you will have so much more responsibilities, a bigger workload, and you might even work longer hours. And unfortunately, your salary may not be on par with those who work in a more well-established company. So, in my opinion, it truly is a compromise, and it's something that you have to consider. Again, it's always great experience to work at a small company and then progress to positions at larger companies where you can work your way up the ladder. That way, you gain a diversified set of skills and experiences that you can apply wherever you go in your career. So these were my biggest experiences and of course lessons from having worked in both small and large companies. If you're applying to jobs right now, watch this video next so that you can avoid the biggest red flags before you accept your job offer.